There are certain game franchises that don't just entertain players, they challenge them. They ask uncomfortable questions about power, society, and the nature of control itself. In fact, few series have done that as effectively as BioShock. Like when the original game released in 2007, it didn't just introduce players to a beautiful, underwater dystopia setting, it sort of reshaped the expectations of storytelling in first-person shooters. The phrase, "would you kindly," became part of the gaming culture because it revealed something deeper about the relationship between the player and the game. Now, more than a decade later, after the last main entry, rumors about BioShock 4 are once again gaining momentum. The project has technically existed for years, but recently a wave of leaks, reports, and industry whispers have painted a far more intriguing picture of what the next entry might really look like. Now, while almost everything remains unofficial right now, the speculation is so detailed that it's starting to feel less like fantasy and more like a glimpse into a very real future. And if the rumors are even partially true, BioShock 4 could become the most ambitious game the series has ever attempted. So, what are we actually talking about? The first thing that immediately stands out is the setting. BioShock has always been defined by its environments. Rapture was an underwater utopia turned nightmare, a city built on radical individualism that collapsed under its own ideology. Columbia, the floating city of BioShock Infinite, explored themes of nationalism, religious extremism, and historical re-envisionism. The world itself was always a character. According to several reports and leaks, the next BioShock might actually take place somewhere completely different. And that would be Antarctica. Specifically, you see a fictional frozen city sometimes referred to in leaks as Borealis suddenly set during the 1960s. And if that sounds strange at first, it actually makes perfect sense when you think about BioShock's core philosophy. Like each game explores an extreme ideological experiment isolated from the rest of the world. Rapture hid beneath the ocean, Columbia floated above it. A city buried in the frozen isolation of Antarctica would continue that tradition almost perfectly. Almost perfectly. Imagine a place built in the most hostile environment on Earth. A technological marvel designed to prove that humanity can conquer nature itself. In a way, the idea echoes the same hubris that defined Rapture and Columbia. BioShock series is always about people who believe they created the perfect society, only to discover that perfection is impossible. Now, the frozen landscape introduces new storytelling opportunities as well, because Antarctica is a place defined by isolation, extreme weather, some endless white horizons. Snowstorms could limit visibility. Blizzards could change exploration routes, Entire sections of the city might be buried beneath ice, Some leaks actually suggest that environmental weather systems could play a major role in the atmosphere this time. In fact, what makes this idea so compelling is the contrast. BioShock worlds are usually vibrant, full of color and propaganda. Now imagine that aesthetic trapped inside an icy wasteland. Bright neon signs glowing through blizzard winds, Art Deco casinos surrounded by frozen wastelands. Propaganda posters fluttering in abandoned hallways while snow slowly piles against the windows. It will feel like Rapture, frozen in time. Another intriguing rumor involves the game's protagonist. See, while nothing is actually officially confirmed, several discussions in the community and some early speculations suggest the possibility of a female lead character, which would be the first for the main BioShock series and could open interesting narrative possibilities as well. BioShock has always explored the consequences of power. A female protagonist navigating a collapsing ideological city could provide a different perspective on those themes. Instead of simply being another outsider dropped into chaos, she might become someone who gradually uncovers the city's potential and philosophical structure from within. The idea becomes even more interesting when you consider BioShock's tradition of morally complicated protagonists. Booker from BioShock Infinite was far from a traditional hero. He was flawed, haunted by his past, directly connected to the story's deeper mysteries. A new protagonist in BioShock 4 could follow that same tradition. Perhaps she is connected to the city's scientific experiments. Perhaps she is a survivor of the society's collapse. Or maybe perhaps she is just something far stranger, a participant in the very system that created the city itself's downfall. Then there is the question of enemies. BioShock has always used mutated citizens to reflect the consequences of its world's ideology. In Rapture, the Splices were people addicted to genetic modifiers. Their powers came at the cost of their humanity. Leaks for BioShock 4 mention a new enemy type known as Flushes, supposedly residents of the Antarctic city who have become warped by similar experiment substances. The return of ADAM, or some new version of it, would mean that, the signature BioShock gameplay loop is likely returning as well. Players would once again gain supernatural abilities through chemical or generic enhancements, allowing them to manipulate the environment, control enemies, or unleash different sort of powers. But if BioShock 4 really wants to evolve the formula, it might push the systems much further. The development history of BioShock 4 has also been pretty complicated, because the project was officially announced in 2019, and it being developed by a studio called Cloud Chamber, created specifically to continue the franchise. However, reports suggest the game has faced multiple challenges during development, including leadership change and internal reviews that forced parts of the project to be reworked. BioShock is not just remembered for its gameplay mechanics, but for the storytelling philosophy, and that matters. These games examine how ideas shape societies and how those ideas collapse when confronted with human nature. A frozen Antarctic city built on a scientific ambition fits almost perfectly into that tradition. Perhaps the city founder believed humanity could evolve beyond the biological limitations. Perhaps genetic experiments became the central ideology. Perhaps the entire society revolved around the belief that perfection could be engineered. But BioShock stories always reveal the same truth, which is perfection is an illusion. Eventually the system breaks, the citizens mutate, the city falls apart, and the player arrives just in time to witness the aftermath. If the developers, with that being said, managed to capture the same philosophical depth that defined the original games while pushing the technology and world building further than ever before, the next BioShock, of course, could become more than just a sequel. It could simply become the next evolution of the series' core idea, that the most terrifying places in video games are not monsters we fight, but the societies we build. And if the next BioShock truly takes us to a frozen city at the end of the world, buried beneath ice and ideology, the franchise may be preparing to tell its coldest, most haunting story yet.